Alright, let's get right back into continuing to assemble this thing. The next part we're going to put on is this little thing that looks like a transistor, but it's actually a temperature sensor. So that's the DS18820. So we're just going to press it into those pins there. Get it reasonably nicely centered. Oops. As I accidentally touch and melt the handle of my flush cuts there. Alright, so following standard procedure, we'll just solder one pin of that to make sure it's nice and level, and then I'm doing that off camera, but we'll just straighten it up a little bit. That's good enough. And then solder the remaining pins. This one is being difficult. There we go. Gotta love those ground planes. Come on, flow in. There we go. Okay. And I'm gonna flush cuts again. There we go. So that's that part. The next step is the buttons. So we'll go ahead and click these buttons into place. Oh, did I solder that on the wrong side of the board? Why wouldn't that be embarrassing? Okay. No, I did not. So the buttons go on the back here. Like this. Oh, interesting. Normally, these buttons will sort of click in and stay put, but this PCB seems to be a little loose. Unless it's supposed to go this way. No. Okay. So what I'm just going to do is widen these pins a little bit to make it so that it will stay in place while I solder it. There we go. There's the one. And one more. Do the same thing. Widen the pins a little bit. And then socket it into the board. There we go. Alright, we'll flip that over and solder those pins in. Just like this. Being careful not to lay the soldering iron against the LEDs. And we'll just work our way across the pins there. Come on. These are very, very big holes. They're taking a lot of solder. There we go. Just a few more pins here. Start flowing. There we go. And then one more. And done. Alright. Those particularly intrusive? Yeah, just a little quick trim. There we go. Yeah, those look alright. So, now that the buttons are placed, the next thing we should place is the sockets and the battery holder. These sockets are going to be fun to place. So, same procedure as always. Oop, just put that over there. We'll solder one pin, get it nice and level, and then solder the remaining pins. There we go. All right. And just flow the solder in there. Got a ground plane here, so that's going to take a bit. Let's see, did that actually flow in properly? Gonna try to flow this ground pin a little bit better there. There we go. That's more like it. This one has barely any solder in it. This is a very thirsty board. Like, it really likes to absorb a lot of solder. Alright, so then we'll go ahead and trim these down. Again, want to get it as close to the board as possible. There we go. Alright. Now we got to do the 40-pin socket, which goes there. And there'll be a notch on the socket and a little notch on the silk screen on the board, so you want to make sure those are lined up. Alright. Solder one pin. Actually, it looks like I may need to solder 2 pins to get this one level just because of the size of it. So we'll snag one of these pins on the opposite side. And do the same reflow trick as usual. There we go. So that should now be nice and level. And I'm not going to subject you guys to watching me solder all 40 of these pins, so just a quick jump cut. Alright, so that's the IC sockets placed. Now we're going to do the battery holder, which goes like this, right? Yes, excellent. Right. Same thing, we're going to have to hold it into place with something temporarily. Flow one of the pins. Make sure it's nice and level. And then do the other one, which is an absolutely enormous hole. Correction, it is an absolutely enormous hole on a ground plane. Ugh. Come on. There we go. Alright, hopefully I didn't melt or damage the battery socket. Nope. Okay. Alright. So the battery socket is now installed. Again, trim the leads down as flat as possible. And now we're going to place the LCD. Or I guess that's not an LCD, that's an LED display, but mind the orientation of the display. The little dots need to go to the bottom. Why is it being difficult? There we go. And if you've trimmed everything nice and flush, it should go right flush to the board, which it has. Now, it's important, very, very important, that you do the crystal, the IC socket, and the battery holder before you do the LED display. Otherwise, you won't be able to solder them because the LED display is going to be covering the pins where you would need to be soldering the those particular components. So make sure you get those done before you do the display. Alright, now that we've applied the first pin, made sure it's level, we'll just go through and solder the LED display pins. One after another here. There we go. There we go. And here's the ground plane pin. Enjoy. Actually, that's soldered quite nicely. Alright. How are we doing for time? I'm not entirely certain. But you know what? I think with the LED display placed, I think that that's good for this episode. So I'm just going to finish nipping off these legs. There we go. Make sure that there aren't any bits of cut wire stuck to the board, because that would make the whole thing stop working. Anyway, if you haven't already, consider clicking here to subscribe. Right over here is a video that YouTube thinks you'll find interesting based on your watching habits. Right here is the LED clock thing playlist, and right here is a link to Patreon. You can use that to help fund more projects like this. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you in the next part.